Ever wonder which mom and pop restaurants are quietly becoming corporate chains? Picture walking into your favorite cozy cafe, only to notice the menu fonts have changed, the pie tastes slightly different, and there's a shiny new logo on the door. If the charm you loved is slowly being replaced by sameness, would you spot the signs before it is too late? Let's kick things off with the ice cream parlor that once felt like a summer tradition, but now runs like a dessert factory, Friendly's. Once upon a time, Friendly's was the ultimate neighborhood treat spot. Families would pile in for burgers, sundaes, and the kind of over-the-top desserts you could not make at home. The staff knew your name, the booths were worn in from years of regulars, and the ice cream menu felt endless. But over the years, as corporate ownership took over and expansion became the focus, Friendly's shifted. The ice cream is still there, but the atmosphere is different. Locations feel standardized, with less of the cozy, lived-in personality they once had. Menus have been streamlined to speed up service and cut costs, and the quality of some dishes has slipped in ways only longtime customers can pinpoint. The sundaes that once looked like they belonged in a magazine now sometimes arrive half-melted, and the sandwiches no longer have that made-with-care feel. The chain has also closed many locations, consolidating into fewer, more polished restaurants that run on efficiency rather than community connection. There is nothing wrong with running a tight ship, but the trade-off is clear. Friendly's is now a brand, not a family hub. For those who grew up there, it feels like watching an old friend get a corporate makeover. The smile is still there, but it is a little less warm. Have you noticed your favorite dessert spot change as it grew, or is ice cream always ice cream, no matter where you get it? Coming up third is the Ohio breakfast spot that grew from farmhouse tables to boardroom deals, Bob Evans. Bob Evans began as a small diner attached to a farm in Ohio, serving hearty breakfasts and classic comfort foods to neighbors and travelers alike. The brand's heart was in its simplicity: biscuits made from scratch, sausage patties from the farm, and coffee poured without rushing you out the door. Expansion brought Bob Evans into towns and suburbs across America, but it also brought a shift. While the rustic decor and country store touches remain, the operations have become a finely tuned corporate machine. Recipes have been standardized for efficiency, and while that ensures every plate of sausage gravy tastes the same, it also means losing some of the variation and charm that came from individual cooks. Longtime fans will tell you that the food is still good, but maybe a little less from the farm and a little more from the playbook. Service, too, has been streamlined, with an emphasis on table turnover rather than lingering over coffee. Even the famous Bob Evans sausage, once a point of pride, is now produced on a much larger scale to feed the chain. The result is a restaurant that still delivers comfort food, but feels less personal than it did in its early days. The farmhouse spirit is still painted on the walls, but it is harder to feel at the table. Would you rather have a perfectly consistent plate every time, or a meal that changes a little but feels more personal? Now, here's the pie matriarch whose name went from handwritten menus to frozen dinner boxes: Marie Callender's. Marie Callender's started as a humble pie shop in California, the kind of place where you could smell fresh pastry crust the moment you walked in. It was cozy, unpretentious, and built on recipes that felt passed down through generations. People came for the pies but stayed for the full menu of comfort foods that tasted like Sunday dinner at home. As the brand expanded, the restaurants became more polished, the menus more corporate, and the recipes tweaked for large-scale production. The pies were still the star, but they started showing up in grocery store freezers alongside pot pies, pasta bakes, and desserts. That move brought the Marie Callender's name into millions of homes, but also shifted the focus away from the in-restaurant experience. Dining rooms became more uniform, service more standardized, and the food, while still comforting, felt a little less from scratch and a little more from headquarters. For many fans, the nostalgia is still strong. A slice of lemon meringue can still bring back memories. But the connection between the original family pie shop and today's corporate chain feels thinner with every year. Marie Callender's has kept its brand alive, but much of its original warmth now comes in cardboard packaging from the freezer aisle. Do you think selling in grocery stores helps keep a restaurant's spirit alive? Or does it dilute what made it special in the first place? Next up is the breakfast haven that went from neighborhood gem to a finely replicated morning machine: the original Pancake House. For decades, walking into the original pancake house felt like stepping into someone's sunny kitchen. The air was warm with the smell of sizzling bacon and melting butter. Waitresses carried towering stacks of pancakes with a smile, and the menu felt handwritten in spirit, even if not in ink. Each location had its quirks, maybe a slightly different coffee blend or an extra generous pour of maple syrup. Making and regulars knew exactly which corner booth caught the best morning light. But as franchising spread across states, the individuality started to fade. Pancakes are still fluffy and the omelets are still massive, but the dining rooms now carry that faint, copied and pasted feel you notice when decor, uniforms, and menus match exactly from one coast to the other. Prices have crept up too, and while you are still getting a hearty breakfast, it feels less like a personal invitation and more like a polished, preset experience. Even the syrup, once a highlight, is now portioned with an eye toward cost control. For travelers, the consistency is comforting, but for locals who remember the early charm, it is a little bittersweet. The spirit of the original house is still there. You just have to look past the corporate blueprint to find it. Would you trade a little soul for the guarantee that your pancakes taste exactly the same every time? Rolling in with a story of all-you-can-eat comfort food that lost some of its small-town sparkle. Shoney's. Shoney's began as a humble drive-in in West Virginia, serving burgers, fries, and milkshakes to locals who pulled up in their cars on summer nights. It grew into a sit-down family chain with a buffet that became its crown jewel, offering fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and enough pie to feed a church congregation. Back then, Shoney's felt like the dining room of the community, the kind of place where Little League teams celebrated and Sunday crowds lingered over second helpings. But as the company pushed for national expansion, the brand started trading that community-first feel for a broader, more generic approach. Buffets became uniform, decor turned standardized, and the menus lost some of the regional specialties that once made each location unique. The shift to corporate ownership brought cost controls and efficiency, but it also meant fewer surprises and less of that made-by-hand quality in the food. While the buffet still delivers quantity, the quality can be hit or miss depending on the day, and the atmosphere feels more like a chain than a gathering place. Longtime fans still stop in for nostalgia's sake, but it is hard to ignore that the Shoney's of today is a different creature than the Shoney's that grew up alongside its customers. Do you think a buffet can still feel personal, or does scaling up always make it lose its charm? Now here is the Midwestern sweetheart that expanded its charm right into a corporate playbook, Culver's. When Culver's first started, it was the kind of place you stumbled upon in a small Wisconsin town, where butterburgers and frozen custard felt like treasured local secrets. The owners chatted with customers, the food was made to order, and every bite felt a little indulgent without trying too hard. As word spread, Culver's grew, carefully at first, keeping its Midwestern warmth intact. But once franchising took off, the focus shifted. Today, Culver's is still beloved for its creamy custard and perfectly cooked burgers, but the experience is far more uniform. Locations are spotless, menus are identical, and even the once local specials now roll out in the same way across hundreds of stores. That is not necessarily a bad thing. The food remains high quality compared to many fast food chains. But some of the early quirkiness has been sanded down. Prices have also risen with expansion, and while you still get generous portions, you can feel the corporate influence in how the operation runs like clockwork. For fans, it is a small price to pay for having Culver's within driving distance almost anywhere. But for those who remember walking into the original location, the difference is noticeable. Would you rather have your favorite hometown spot stay rare, or see it everywhere even if it changes a little? And finally for this round, the diner that used to feel like a Sunday ritual but now runs on pure franchise efficiency, Perkins. Perkins started as a simple pancake house in the late 1950s, the kind of place where you could get a bottomless cup of coffee, a short stack, and a warm welcome from the same waitress who had been there for decades. It grew steadily, adding pies, sandwiches, and dinner plates until it became a full-service family restaurant. The charm was in its pace. Perkins was never about rushing you out. It was about letting you linger over dessert and coffee while catching up with friends. But as expansion accelerated and corporate policies tightened, the atmosphere began to shift. Menus were streamlined, decor was standardized, and the food preparation leaned more heavily on centralized supply chains. While the food is still reliable, you know your omelet will arrive looking the same in any location. It no longer has the slightly varied, home-cooked touch it once did. Prices have kept pace with other family chains, and the service is usually friendly, but the rhythm feels different. The old Perkins was a slow Sunday morning. The new Perkins is a well-oiled brunch machine. For some, that efficiency is welcome. For others, it is a reminder that even the coziest corners can be mapped, measured, and scaled. Do you think a diner loses its soul when it starts running like a corporate checklist? Sliding in next with a roadside country store that traded quirky charm for identical rocking chairs. Cracker Barrel. For decades, Cracker Barrel was a road trip staple. A place you would spot from the highway and pull over for a meal that felt like eating at a friend's grandmother's house. The wooden porch lined with mismatched rocking chairs, the smell of cornbread baking, the quirky little general store inside, it all felt authentically homespun. But as the brand expanded across states, something happened. Those rocking chairs started looking the same at every location. The once unique decor became a formula. Checkerboards, vintage ads, the same framed portraits no matter where you went. Even the menu, once built on the regional specials, flattened into a predictable list. Sure, you can still get chicken and dumplings or biscuits with gravy, but they taste exactly the same whether you are in Tennessee or Arizona. That consistency is part of the corporate playbook. Reliable, scalable, and cost-controlled, but it chips away at the charm. Locals who once felt the restaurant reflected their community now notice the sameness, the efficiency replacing the personal touch. Prices have also crept up, and in some locations, the portions feel just a little smaller. For travelers, it might still be a comforting stop, but for those who remember the early days, it is a reminder that growth can smooth out the rough edges that made a place special. Cracker Barrel has not lost its entire soul, but it has traded part of its personality for uniformity. Do you think consistency is worth losing that original made just for you feeling? Sliding into the list is the high-end steakhouse that went from a rare indulgence to a polished corporate brand, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. In its early days, Ruth's Chris was the kind of place you dressed up for, saved for a special anniversary, and left talking about for weeks. The sizzling platters of steak arrived still crackling in butter. The servers treated you like honored guests, and the wine list felt hand-picked for the evening. But as the chain expanded into airports, suburban shopping centers, and tourist hubs, that intimate white tablecloth magic started to shift. What once felt like a one-of-a-kind evening now feels like a carefully managed production, down to the lighting and music playlist. The personal flair of an owner walking the floor has largely been replaced by uniform training that keeps the experience consistent but less individual. The steaks are still cooked to perfection, no doubt about that, but the environment now feels curated by corporate design teams rather than individual owners. Decor, menu, and even the pacing of the service are replicated so precisely that dining in Miami feels exactly the same as dining in Denver. This kind of consistency appeals to travelers and loyal customers, but for those who remember the dimly lit charm and local character of the first locations, it can feel like a trade-off. Prices have climbed into the luxury tier, and while the quality is steady, the experience now carries a hint of predictability. Ruth's Chris has mastered the art of serving excellence at scale. The question is whether you prefer excellence with or without that small-town soul. Would you rather your perfect steak taste the same everywhere or feel different in a way that makes it one of a kind? Let's turn to the southern comfort chain that once felt like a neighborhood hangout, O'Charlie's. Back when O'Charlie's was rooted in the Southeast, it had the kind of menu that felt handwritten just for you. Cornbread muffins hot from the oven, fried chicken that crackled when you bit into it, and pies so big you needed backup to finish them. The decor leaned cozy, and the staff often knew you by name. There was a warmth in the air, the kind that made you linger over coffee and dessert without feeling rushed. Expansion brought the brand to dozens of new markets, but also brought a shift in its soul. The regional charm gave way to corporate efficiency, which meant faster table turnovers and a focus on menu items that could be replicated exactly across hundreds of kitchens. While you can still find their famous rolls and dependable meatloaf, the magic now lies in their ability to deliver the same meal no matter which state you are in. For travelers, that reliability is a comfort, but longtime customers miss the slower, more personal rhythm that made a night at O'Charlie's feel like dinner at a friend's home. Prices remain reasonable and the service is generally friendly, but the menu no longer carries the same element of surprise it once did. O'Charlie's hasn't lost its comfort food. It has just traded the quirks of a hometown favorite for the polish of a well-managed chain. Do you think comfort food needs a personal touch, or can it come straight from a corporate playbook and still feel special? Next on the plate is the barbecue joint that smoked its way into the big leagues, Famous Dave's. When Famous Dave's first fired up the pits in Wisconsin, it was the definition of a passion project. Slow-smoked meats, sauces crafted from scratch, and a dining room that smelled like wood smoke and ambition. Locals lined up for pulled pork sandwiches and ribs that fell off the bone, each bite layered with deep, smoky flavor. You could feel the pride in every plate, right down to the hand-painted signs and mismatched chairs that gave the place character. As the brand grew across the country, the barbecue stayed good, often better than you might expect from a chain. But the operation shifted. Centralized supply chains and standardized cooking methods brought consistency, yet dulled some of the local creativity in flavor and presentation. The sauces became branded products, sold in grocery stores, and the sides followed the same recipe no matter the location. Some locations still have pitmasters who tweak recipes or offer regional sauce varieties, but many stick closely to the corporate menu. The decor, all rustic wood and Americana, is now part of a branding kit rather than a reflection of the owner's personal style. Prices are in the mid-range for barbecue, and the quality is generally solid, but the sense of discovery is less pronounced. What was once a backyard barbecue you stumbled upon has become a well-oiled smokehouse machine. Do you think barbecue should always taste a little different depending on where you are? Or is consistency the real secret to keeping people coming back? And finally, we end with the fondue destination that turned from date night novelty into a national franchise, the Melting Pot. When the Melting Pot first appeared, it was an experience as much as a meal. Couples lingered over bubbling pots of cheese, friends dipped bread and fruit into warm chocolate, and the whole evening moved at a pace that encouraged conversation and indulgence. You could spend hours here without feeling a hint of pressure to clear your table, making it feel like a rare escape from rushed dining. Each location had its own little quirks, a unique cocktail here, a different cheese blend there, and the staff often acted like fondue coaches, guiding you through the courses. Expansion brought the Melting Pot to malls, city centers, and suburban hubs, and while the interactive dining remains, the experience now feels more scripted. Uniform plating, corporate-approved cheese blends, and standardized dessert options have replaced much of the once local experimentation. The menus are uniform, the decor polished to brand standards, and the specials cycle in a predictable rhythm. Prices are on the higher end, justified by the experience factor, but longtime fans notice that the spontaneity has cooled. It is still a special night out, but it is one you could easily replicate in any of their locations nationwide. That might be the point, creating a signature evening you can count on anywhere. But it leaves you wondering if a little unpredictability might make the chocolate taste sweeter. Would you rather know exactly what your night will be like or risk a surprise for the chance at something unforgettable? So tell me, which of these mom and pop to corporate transformations surprised you most, and which do you think kept their soul intact? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tap that like button if you enjoyed the journey, and subscribe to the Hidden Menu so you never miss our next deep dive. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.